And welcome everybody to Blerdlines. This is your man Cam. With me, as always, is
the Black Lantern Corps member, the other Cam,
as well as
Josh Valzad.
And always bringing up the rear,
Professor Darkside.
That is accurate.
I am looking for the anti-life equation.
Bet you are.
And we are back. We are talking about Superman. Movie just dropped. We've all seen it in some capacity, and we wanted to share our thoughts on it. But also, too, this is James Gunn's big welcoming party. It's the best way. But he already did a couple small things here and there. But now this is his first silo into the whole like rebooting of DCU, as they call it now. Before it was called DCEU or something like that. But this is the big flagship of his whole like, I'm now the head of DC. I am the Kevin Feige of DC now. And yeah, he's like, hey, this is Superman. This is what it is. I'm releasing it to the public. Let me know what you guys think. And yeah, how do you guys think he did? I'm gonna go to D'Angelo first.
There is a message for you.
Oh, well. Anyway. I just had to get that out the way. Honestly, I thought that it was a fun movie. I think that for trying to launch Superman and bring him really into the 21st century in the live action space to stand on his own, I thought that this was a good start. It has some flaws, but what I really liked about it is that it felt from start to finish like a superhero movie that is based on a comic book. Even the opening sequence, and there was a lot of, they say fortune favors the bold. There was a lot of bold choices that he did. Some of them worked, some of them, well, not so much. The opening sequence starting by giving us the text of establishing that metahumans have existed and on the radar for 3 decades at least, maybe even more. Superman came out 3 years before the start of these events, and then here's the first time that gets his ass kicked, and that's how we began. And I thought that was a bold choice to start it that way. We know who Superman is. We know his origin story. We know that he's an alien that seeks refuge on Earth and becomes the strongest, most powerful metahuman or really being on the planet. And David Corn Sweat, for all the talk about, the Cavill love and we got enough of that. He's a nerd like us, and he was a poorly written Superman, but he did a good job in terms of how he presented himself. But this felt like Superman, and I know I'm not a big Superman fan at all. I really don't like the character, but I like when the character is written this way, because right off the bat, he establishes that there is no God complex. This is an individual who donned this goofy costume to go out into the world and fight evil because he can. And you saw that in the story from the beginning to the end. Even some things as minuscule, the details of him saving a squirrel, that is Superman. Hope even in the midst of chaos. Even the details of how when he's in the middle of a fight, he turns and he sees that, if he stays right there, the kaiju is going to just blow fire at him. He won't die, but everybody behind him will be melted to nothing. And so he says, on me, and flies up. And those details are the things that I appreciate about this film. And this felt like an energetic start. Everybody who was in it, some good cameos there, especially the Peacemaker. That one was my favorite. But every person or every character that appeared for this story, it worked, and it wasn't too much. Like I said, I have some issues with the writing, but overall, I think that this is a fine start. You know, it reminded me of Iron Man in that Iron Man was not a perfect movie. I mean, we like to retroactively think that the MCU started off perfect. It was a great movie, and it made a lot of money, got a lot of critical acclaim, and it set a tone. And that's what this, I felt like, did. It's making a lot of money. It's a watchable film. I'd watch it again, and I haven't said that about a lot of Superman anything, but I watched this again, and I think it set a tone for Superman's lane, and it'll be interesting to see the other tones for the other DCU characters to come.
Yeah, I would say for me, like I enjoyed it. Like when I got out of it, I would say I was like, yeah, it's fun and it's entertaining, and it did feel like a superhero movie. And I think like they did a good job of just kind of bringing Superman back to that element, right? Like I'm not a Superman fan either. I'm also not a Batman fan. That's a whole nother story. But I understand the tone of the character, and in this tone of that character, with this right, it was a lot spot on. Where it was bright, it was sunny, a lot of fun colors and saturation. You know, the Boy Scout naivete of Superman came through so much through the whole film. Like you said, saving a squirrel. Like one of my favorite small mini moments was when Terrific was talking to him, and he was talking about like Terrific's like, oh yeah, we can, we got to figure out how we're gonna do this, kill this monster. And then Superman's like, wait, kill him? We could like, capture him and study him. And Terrific gives him the black man side eye, like, Negro, what? And he was just like, nah, man, what are you doing?
Yeah,
so,
that was a
but
good
I like
moment.
that.
Yeah.
And I think those moments helped like redefine like, okay, hey, Superman is a Boy Scout. He's a very naive farm boy from the sticks that generally believes in hopes of people. And I think
everybody lives every time.
Everybody lives.
There's
Everybody
good
lives
in everybody. You just have to bring it out. And you saw that even when he's fighting the engineer, when he goes to, even when he's dealing with Lex, he could have hurt Lex a lot, but he didn't. When he knocks him down, he specifically holds back just so he can get him to stop. And that's a contrast difference than Cavill's Superman telling Lex Luthor, "I can take you in without breaking."
Yeah, and
I think he told that to Batman. Yeah.
No, he said that to Lex Luthor. To Batman, he said he basically told him to not. He was finished. To never.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah,
to never do it again. Yeah.
Yes.
But still, still, to your point,
same
it's
energy.
not Superman. Yeah, same energy.
Yeah,
Homelander energy.
And I would say the same thing about like that's why I liked the scene with him and Lois when they're doing the interview. And Lois is a super skeptical, question everything. I'm a reporter, to ad nauseum to annoyance. Where he's literally more optimistic. Like, why did you go to that country? He was like, people are gonna die. She's like, yeah, but did you think about the ramifications? He was like, but people were going to die. And so I like that they really reestablished that aspect of Superman's character so that even if you don't, I mean, everyone knows Superman, but if you didn't, you're just coming in cold, you now know, oh, he's a super naive guy that thinks there's good in everybody. He's a lot more optimistic, and he tries to fight for the little person or the person that can't fight for themselves. So I thought that was a good basis of at least adjusting of what Superman was. I think for me, we'll go into the more negatives later, but for me, the pacing was my big thing for the overall movie. There was a weird pacing going on through it that just like parts of it felt long and parts of it felt short, all in the same movie, which is really weird. But I thought that, the how they casted everything, and then also, and Cam will go to you next, but also the redemption arc of my man, Mr. Terrific, was great to see. It was so awesome to see him on screen. Only me and Josh are Arrow fans that watched the desecration of the character in Arrow. Berlanti, I will never forgive you for that dumbness.
Never ever.
But how they portrayed Terrific was really dope, and I'm glad that he got a lot of shine, and in a way that like now, if I'm a young Black kid that didn't know who this character was, now I want to know more about him. So I think that part was cool.
I saw something online where someone was like, Mr. Terrific is going to be every Black kid's costume for the next 5 years.
Mess around.
Yeah, probably. But yeah,
He
so that
ends
was
up
my
being the
intro.
coolest guy on the screen in every scene that he's in, and I feel like that's, without and we can pivot over to Cam, but I feel like that is, first of all, redemption for Eddie. What's his last name? Eddie Gaffegi, the
Oh,
actor who plays Mr. Terrific.
yes, yeah. Also,
And
First Class, X-Men.
yeah. I was just about to say redemption for him in First Class, because
Wait, who was he? He was Darwin.
yeah, he was
Okay.
Darwin, and I mean, he was done dirty. He was just done horribly dirty. But here he's the precise opposite of that character. He's not just there as the black guy who ends up getting killed 10 seconds after you introduce him, but he's literally the coolest guy on screen in every scene, even the scenes with Soups. And I think it's a good contrast to sort of, hey, I'm the cool guy, and I'm standing next to this, farm boy hick who's just like, everything's all sunshine and bugs and rainbows, and the world don't operate like that. But if that's his thing, that's his thing. But go ahead, Cam. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that part was cool, and then I think that kind of like what D said. I think like the inclusion of the different characters actually worked. That's like casting wise, they did a really good job, and everyone that got casted like pretty much hit it out the park, which was good for the whatever amount of screen time that they were in, and it kind of worked out in that aspect of it. And I think that like that Terrific was cool, and then also too, the last thing I'll say is shout out to Nicholas Holt, who played Lex, because did a pretty damn good job. Pretty good. Like before, I was like, maybe John Cryer is the best Lex Luthor. Now I'm like, maybe this is switched over. So yeah, it was cool. But Cam, I know you have a little bit different of a take. We'll shoot it over to you.
I mean, yeah, I'm not a big Superman fan. I just would I watch this again? No. I think it was pretty generic, but it was fun. It's entertaining. It did its job, but I would probably tell people to wait till it streams. Just my opinion. I mean, it's not that I'm saying go watch it, but wait till it streams. I'm not saying
Why?
It didn't do anything for me. I think there was too many damn characters and so little time. I got introduced to a lot of characters, and I couldn't get an opportunity to care about them a little bit more. When you said Mr. Terrific was the most like coolest, I thought I liked Guy Gardner's character. He was a little bit more interesting to me.
Oh, he's a great idiot. Yeah.
Yeah. I found myself in his scenes were much more enjoyable. Whenever I watched Mr. Terrific, I felt like I was watching Kirk Lazarus from Tropic Thunder. I don't know why I got that feeling, but he sounded just like him. And I was just like, what is this?
They've been somewhat the black pink.
No, it's the way his voice, his inflection.
No,
I get what you're saying, but he just sounded like I was listening to Kirk Lazarus, when he was talking his dialogue, or the guy that played the Hammer, the ex-football player from back in the blaxploitation days. I can't think of his name, but overall, it's not a bad movie, but it's just a mad movie to me. It's cool. There's some highlights. There's some moments in that movie that's cool. For me, I didn't realize the damn dog was majority CGI, which was cool. I couldn't tell, and I thought that character was pretty cool. Like I was like, oh, okay, they did this all right.
Fun fact. Let me just jump in real quick. Fun fact. Apparently, the personality of the dog was based on a rescue dog. Yeah, James Gunn's rescue dog.
James Gunn's rescue dog.
Pretty much everything that the dog did in the movie is stuff that he experienced with his rescue dog.
Like I said, overall, like I said, I would just tell people just wait. It's worth waiting for to go watch it. You don't have to spend your money to go see this. So here's my pros for these. Before I get into my cons, we can talk about cons a little later. But my pros, I love that the origin was already established. That's cool. Again, we've already understand what Superman is, how he got here. I think I don't know who mentioned this. Maybe you, Josh. The voice change between Kent and Superman was something to note. Like Kent, his voice changed when he's Superman. He has this deeper, more confident voice. I thought, although he's Superman, I said he has emotions and he has at breakdowns due to criticism, a bit of the ego. Luther is a psychopath, but also the negative about Luther is he comes off a little frat boyish, and I don't like that. He doesn't feel like a mastermind genius to me. I feel like he just has a bone to pick with Superman, and he's just like, you know what I'm saying? It's just like, I feel like if you're a mastermind, letting Superman get under your skin is beneath you. You could go for bigger things. That's just my opinion of Luther's character. But I did like the psychopathic part about him really trying to get to Superman, right? Jimmy Olsen was an interesting character because I've never seen this version of Jimmy Olsen. I was still trying to understand why he's such a playboy. Maybe this is me not knowing the Superman backstory, but the dude was like a playboy. I'm like, why? Like, why is this dude like this?
Was he a playboy, or was it just Eve Tessmacher that was into him?
It was Eve.
I thought it was just Eve.
The two interns were looking at him, and everybody.
Oh, you're right.
That's true.
Yes.
And he has a picture with two other girls, like hot girl. I'm like, how does this character? So I've never seen that.
Yep.
Like I said, I like the jerk of Green Lantern. I think he's dense, but I think it's cool. I like the fact that Clark and Lois ain't fooling nobody in that world, and they know that they got something going on. I love that part. But also, I was like, how many freaking people know that this dude is Superman? Like, if Lex finds out anytime in this movie, he's going to use that to his advantage.
Only Lois knew, though, right?
No.
And his parents.
No.
And the Justice Gang.
No. Oh, yeah.
So, the Justice Gang. Well, Guy Gardner would know anyway.
Jimmy knows. Because at the end of the
movie, they were fooling around that Superman and Lois are actual thing. Yeah, that's what you're talking about, like that part.
They know, man. Like, if you them glasses ain't fooling nobody. And so part of me.
Well, wait a second. That doesn't prove that they know, because it's not established that Clark and Lois are together.
Yes, it's Superman and Lois. That's the thing that's established. Like,
it's
Perry
a matter of time. It's a matter of time.
Perry says that, and Jimmy says that they know that they've been.
Yeah, but I'm saying within the parameters of this story, it is a matter of time before they find out. I'm saying in this particular segment of the story, the maybe Jimmy suspects something about them, her and Clark, and then he puts it together. But as far as now, he only sees her as in she's fooling around with Superman.
It's only a matter of time, because look, what's the chief's name? By
Perry White.
Perry White. He put that together right when he saw him, like that they were sleeping together. So it's only a matter of time being an investigative reporter and seeing that Clark is the only one I'm going on a limb. I'm assuming. Yes, it's not established they know, but as investigative reporters, if Perry was just to look at them that one moment and say they sleeping together, it's only a matter of time before he starts putting two together. He's like, damn, Clark's getting all the stories. He's got these exclusive. Lois Lane is getting this, so that's just mine.
And I liked they actually.
That's also. I'm sorry. I just wanted to say this really quick that that's the Superman world, right? Like the whole thing of people not know it being right in their face and them not knowing. That's why the whole thing with the glasses was
so my counterpoint to that point was, there's part of a nostalgic feeling that is so obvious but no one knows, but they took a bold choice in letting the audience know that there's people in the world that knows he's either Superman already, or him Lois and Superman are sleeping together. Whereas in the old movies, only like a few heads knew. It was like a super tight secret.
Because it was guarded. Yeah, it was a guarded secret.
And for a long time, they weren't together in the comic books. It was a will they, won't they situation.
Yeah, and my last pro for this movie was the post-credit scene mean nothing. And I'm glad it has, in my opinion, I don't think it had
I love that.
It had nothing to do with
I absolutely love that.
So I'm glad they kind of broke the Marvel Lego piece. Wait for it. Like, I waited for the credits because I saw it. Anytime a movie ends with these type of superhero movies, I'm going to go to the credits and see, or go to Wikipedia, read the credits. It's like, is there a post-credit scene so I can wait? If there is one, I'm going to check it out. But when I watched it, I was like, oh, this has nothing to do. That's cool. It's just a post-credit scene.
It's its own thing.
It's just Superman is still hanging with Crypto and looking out on the world.
I will say this too. I didn't have a big issue with the flying scene, but I did like the fact that it did look like he was flying because his hair was moving, little
I
stuff
love
like
that.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It,
I
it
love
did.
the hair moving. I thought that was a good detail.
Yeah, it was a little weird, but it didn't bother me. But I did like the fact that it did look like he was flying. But those are my pros overall for me. I have a lot of cons, but like and some middle ground stuff. But I'll stick with the pros right now.
Yeah,
I like there's
and I
some
think-
shots that they did too that were iconically Superman, like the shot
Yes.
where he's like this and you can see nothing but the cape flowing behind him and his feet are out. Like those are like iconic Superman shots because there's so many characters, superheroes that fly, but Superman is the quintessential character that flies, and his flight is iconic. Like the way he flies is iconic. So I like that we got a lot of that as well, just those small details.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing for the movie overall. There's a lot of small details in it, like a comic book that would have things that you see in the background, right? You see a little thing about Gotham, you see a little bit of thing about this, you see, and it's all to the world building. So like the world building in general was a good thing. That it was like they did just a good job of like establishing that, like, yeah, Superman's been here. He's in a world that has other superheroes. Those other superheroes know about him. Not all of them like him, but he's there. And I think that part was like well established throughout the film. Like you said, the cameos with Peacemaker and being like, oh, that dude's like kind of annoying. Or, even Sean Gunn as Maxwell Lord was just enough to establish who Maxwell Lord is. Kept hearing about him all through the movie. You see a clip of him and then it keeps moving. So the world building in general, I thought that was actually really, really cool. Josh, what was your more positives? Want to go from there?
I mean, pretty much from jump, the 300 years ago, 30 years ago, 3 decades ago, 3 days ago, 3 hours ago, rather, kind of that that sort of set the stage. And from the time he's repowered at the Fortress of Solitude, you jump right back into it's like you're dropped right back into Metropolis, and all the world building pieces just sort of fall into place really fast without making it, at least in my opinion, without it feeling rushed. It felt very organic. It felt like you were just walking through a day in the life of Superman. Like it was just, this is, you almost like you walked into a room and you met a bunch of people you didn't know, but you got to know them really fast. So I like that. I like Cam mentioned before. I love Crypto is great. Crypto is almost the star of that. Is almost the star of the movie. Steals every scene he's in. Like Cam, I did not realize that the dog was CG. You would swear that dog was real. Just in terms of mannerisms and things of that nature. I like the pacing. I thought it was fast, but moved in a way that made the story work for what Gunn was trying to do. Superman saving little kids, Superman saving squirrels. It just he like I said before, like everybody lives. His disappointment when they blew up the inside of the kaiju to take it down, perfect. Pitch perfect. His overreaction to the planned reaction that Luthor got out of him when he kidnapped Crypto. Again, very Superman. He's cool until you violate, and there are certain ways that you violate that you get him to wild out like that. Dude bursts into his office and tosses his desk, and pretty much in a very threatening manner especially for someone with his power set. That was a pretty threatening thing to do. There's nothing that says that Superman won't hurt him or kill him.
Josh,
Well, he's always in control in that situation. When he does that, it's a clear statement in that regard.
Josh, there's one con we're going to talk about to the point that what pushes Superman's buttons, because I felt like part of his character development was a little off. But
Okay.
I'm gonna let you finish. But I want you to remember that point. of
Copy.
I
dog.
want to support that point of what Josh said just by saying that I think at first we don't really get why, because there's an inconsistency. Maybe that's what you're pointing to, and that how he talks about the dog versus he looks at it as almost like a burden, right?
Mm.
But we find out later why that is. And I don't know if that makes it better or worse. And I'm not saying it if it does, but there's a supporting part that connects that in terms of his development that supports the family theme and his emphasis and belief in family ties and strong family ties. And that would explain the connection and specifically his anger about Luthor taking the dog. But we can
Yeah.
circle back to
And I think that's, and this is
I'm not trying
spoiler.
to make Cam you feel any different. I'm just saying that
There's a scene in this movie that should have got more uproar from Superman than the damn dog.
So wait, before we get to that, Josh, you can finish up the last, and then we'll go right into that.
Overall, I think he hits the nail on the head. It felt like Superman. As someone who has pretty fond and vivid memories of the very first Superman movie and seeing that in the theater and having that be sort of my entry point and gateway drug into superhero films. I mean, there weren't that many, if any, before that. But that was for sure like my gateway drug, and just sort of, being 5 years old, sitting in the theater, wide-eyed at everything that was happening, even not even fully understanding, the plot and what Gene Hackman's Luthor was trying to do and all that other stuff. All I know is that man turned time backwards. Yeah, like I say, I think the last time that I felt that a movie captured present day, that era's present day Superman was probably then. Since then, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I think Superman 2 is still my favorite of that franchise. But if we're gonna call it for what captures Superman at his essence, that first one nails it, and it nails it pitch perfectly for the time. And this is not that far a departure from that, because at the end of the day, I feel like even the comic books, the better Superman threads in the comics all sort of fall in line with that same truth, justice, Boy Scout. He's always that. He's always
Silver Age meets the modern. Like that's what this movie was. It was the Silver Age meeting the more post 80s stuff, where with post The Dark Knight Returns, or you can Milestone, when all these different other characters enter the DC world, and they were all different tonally and had to exist with Superman.
Yeah, and I feel like there was an interview with James Gunn where he was talking about how each movie is not going to be each movie from this point forward is going to be tonally its own thing. All the other movies that he has lined up, or that they have lined up in their arsenal, aren't going to have the same tone. And I feel like that's where Marvel is already in trouble. And I said it when I heard that interview. I said to myself, Marvel's about to have their lunch money took, because they haven't had any reason to alter their current mode of operation, storytelling wise. This whole justification of the villain, you making you feel for the villain in the television show and in the movies. Nobody's bad for bad's sake. Their motives are always these things that you sort of are forced to identify with, instead of just, sometimes some bad guys are just bad for bad sake. Like, I want to conquer. I want to see it all burn. And you don't get any of that. I mean, you don't get a lot of it. You don't get any of that in Marvel. And I feel like Gunn gets it. Gunn gets the villain. Gunn gets how sometimes it's not like that. And I think being able to differentiate, and having been on inside of the machine, I think my last point, having been inside of the machine, I feel like he knows where they run most afoul of the audience's greater sensibilities from a storytelling standpoint. Everything doesn't have to be a Disney, a Disney ending where everybody's all happy and, you feel bad for the bad guy. And, the good guy shakes a finger at him and goes, "Don't you do that again. That wasn't very nice." Like, it's not, you don't have to tell stories that way. And I feel like it paints every character with the same brush in the broader sort of sense. And the fact that he's going to get away from that, or again, not get away from that, the fact that he's not going to allow that to happen with the other stories that get told, whether he writes another one or the other storytellers that he's bringing in, the other writers that he's bringing in to tell these stories, that's a big deal. And I feel like Marvel's going to have to either pivot, they won't, or their lunch money is going to get took. And they're about to be a distant, not even second, they're about to be a distant second to some really good storytellers, some really good writers, and some really good directors who know how to function in a story where it's not about the characters, it's about the theme, it's about the narrative, it's about the narrative that pushes the decisions that the characters make. It's about the themes that sort of govern the world and things of that nature. And it hurts my heart to say that, because I'm Marvel to the death and I always will be. But I don't think.
I wouldn't swing the white flag just yet. I would say that they should be seeing this as a wake up call. I mean, they will get a litmus test in a couple weeks with Fantastic Four. And as I pointed out, there's a palpable difference here, which is this was from a veteran director and writer who's done 4 previous comic book adaptation movies, whereas Matt Shackman has directed some episodes of Game of Thrones, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and a few other things. Yeah. And he's never directed a big budget effort like Fantastic Four. So again, it all comes down to execution, but I would be curious. Now I'm even more curious to see what happens in that movie and how that works out, because I think if that has a critical downslide and does a lukewarm box office, then you could probably start to get worried, because they've already established that they got nothing for the next Avengers movies. That is gimmick and nostalgia. That's all that is. As opposed to trying to do something different and bring in the X-Men in a fresh, real way, they're going with gimmick and nostalgia.
But this is why I waved the white flag already. I feel like, you know what I mean?
Point,
like they haven't shown much willingness or ability. I can't speak to which, but they haven't shown any sort of movement toward change. Like, they're not going to alter the way that business is currently done, because it seems like it's their way. And, it's not to say that they haven't succeeded. They've had outsized success, even with the movies that fall short up to this point. Even with the movies that fall short, they've still had outsized success with what they've done thus far. It's just these most recent entries are starting to chip away and subtract from where they wound up by the time Endgame wrapped up. And everything since then has just been just a little bit less.
And honestly, what it is you don't have you need a villain. You need a competition. And I think for a good chunk of years, DC has been kind of failing on that. So Marvel can kind of just rest in the laurels and just kind of just give you that like sameness for a while. But now that I think if nothing else for Superman, this is a good book. This is a good movie for normies. It's a good movie for the nerds. But at least now it ups the ante, where now Marvel's kind of like, oh crap, you guys are actually doing some stuff now. We're gonna have to step our game up, because for the last 5 to 6 years, they didn't have to step their game up because they're the only game in town. And I think that's one thing that this is at the very least, whether you like the movie or not, this will help upset that apple cart of Marvel actually being like, oh, we could just give you guys anything and you guys are gonna like it. Now they're like, oh shit, now we actually got to try and put a little bit more effort in than we normally do. And so I think I'm glad that this happened, and I think this it's a good entry in it because overall, I thought Superman was pitched straight up the middle. Like I said, it's really, really good. Establishes for the normies, good for the nerds. We have quibbles, and we'll get to the quibbles next. But I think they did a good job of just making something that felt like a superhero movie. It kind of took off the stink of the superhero fatigue that's been going on for a while, and it's actually like enjoyable and it's fun. So now from there, where do we go from? And I think for Marvel, they've been resting on their laurels pretty much since Endgame. There's a little bright spots here and there, but they're the only game in town, so they don't really have to try that hard. So I think
And I
now
think to
now
your
this gives them a little bit of a bump to be like, oh, we might have to actually try now.
at least reconsider their storytelling their storytelling approach. I think to the point about the tone, when you see in spoiler alert, when you see the cameo of Supergirl, um, they establish a tone there in the way that she enters the scene. There's a tone established that we're going to get something different in her movie when the story is from her point of view, and that is a much better. And then Gunn is also doing this as far as he and Peter Safran goes. They're going with completed scripts. That's the reason why there's no release date for Brave and the Bold, no casting announcements or anything like that, because for the last almost, well, I would say 5 to 6, maybe 10 years, Marvel has been putting out those hard deadlines and they will stick to them, whether there's a script or not. And often when they do this, they get an Ant-Man 3 or a Secret Invasion or something like that, where it's just BS. So this is a good entry to start us anew for DC with a little bit of excitement. I had not seen that many families and as many people in the theater for a superhero film in a very long time.
Yeah, I think that's a part too. So, all right, now we can get to the quibbles and the negative. So this is the fun part because I think like watching the movie, the biggest for me specifically, like Josh talked about how he actually liked the pacing. I thought the pacing was one of the major issues of the film because there was parts where it felt extra long, and then in other parts it felt hella short. Like it didn't take me out of it, but I was just like, it just concerning as I was watching it overall. And that was one of the things that for me, pacing wise, it just felt kind of weird. And as much as I liked a lot of the writing in terms of like the world building, the little quips, and some of the fun stuff, like Guy Gardner had some of the best lines. Like I enjoyed It's Terrific, but Cam didn't really like it as much. But I think there's other parts where I was like, okay, I see what you guys are trying to do here, right? Like kind of like what Dee said. He did a lot of bold things, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it didn't. It just depends on whether you bought into it or not. And I think a lot of the parts I did, and then when I did it, I was kind of like, I think for me, like Ultraman, quote unquote Bizarro, like I kind of called that right when I saw it. I was like, okay, who else in the DC can mess Superman about besides like a Doomsday or some other stuff? So I was like,
There's
okay,
only one other candidate for who with those powers, and that would be Apollo from the Authority, and that was the only person that I thought, because they're introducing the Authority.
I just want to make clear, Bizarro and Ultraman are two different entities. They're not the same.
Yes, correct. Ultraman is on Earth. I forget which one, but his story is
on a different Earth.
Yeah, his story is famous for in Infinite Earths. No, is it Christ on Infinite Earth, or is it Infinite Crisis? Is Infinite Crisis? Yeah, so it's one of those books, but he is the parallel of Superman, but he is not Kal-El. He's someone else entirely.
Yeah, kind of like the Black Superman, same thing. Like he's the Superman of that realm essentially. Right.
But he's
it was
not
weird
Kal-El.
they used that name. Yeah, it was weird. As a comic book fan, I was like, why are they using that name? Because I was like, in my mind, I was like, this got to be Bizarro. But anyways, yeah, I could see how that confusion can kind of put in there. But yeah, I thought like in general, kind of like what I said, there's parts where like it wouldn't. I don't even want to say it was a generic superhero movie, but it felt like a superhero movie for good and bad. in a way that like it made, like I said, if I was a family of 4, taking my kids and we're chilling and hanging out and we're watching this, I'm like, oh, this is super cool. If I'm a nerd and I know the comic lore of Superman from top to bottom and I'm watching it, it had stuff in there for me specifically. A lot of the Easter eggs, a lot of the little details in the background, how the characters were aired as well. So I enjoyed that, and I think it did a good job of appeasing both. But by doing that, it sacrificed a little bit here and there. Cam had some notes, so I know like when I go to you first, then we can kind of go from there.
All right, like I said in the beginning, I thought there was a lot of characters introduced, and then give me an opportunity to care about those characters that they were introducing to me too. But I mean, that's neither here nor there. There's also the thing, Josh, you had mentioned something about no one dies, and because of the dog, we see how close Superman gets to like doing something. Well, his friend Malik died in that middle ground, and Superman didn't bat an eye. And that was a dude that had a relationship with Superman.
Right.
And I'm like, that shit could have been a breaking point for Superman to really do something and
Fair.
get from this by golly G Willikers Superman, which is fine. That's a different take.
Which what are you referring to?
So in
The cart guy.
the cart guy, he got murdered.
You're talking about when Superman is being poisoned with kryptonite and
they shot dude. He shot dude. Go ahead.
Yeah, I remember that, but I get what you're saying, but that I don't know if that was the same, if that's the same thing, because he's being poisoned by kryptonite. He's being murdered in that situation.
Let me scale back. So here's the thing: when Lois was interviewing Superman, and you get to see Superman get visibly upset, people were going to die.
Yeah.
He cares.
Yeah.
He had to step in. A person died by Lex Luthor's own hand. Superman, by my impression, does not want to see anybody die, especially human life. He tried to save the alien in some capacity, but ultimately knew it was incapable. They were incapable of doing that. They just couldn't bring him in alive. They were like, we got to get rid of this thing. But to see Superman get poisoned and be on a bended knee and see Lex Luthor just boom take a body mercilessly, and he had a relationship. I was thinking Superman was going to have a breaking point, even though he's getting poisoned by kryptonite. As soon as he got out of there, he didn't confront Luthor and be like, "Yo, man, like you crossed the line, a crazy line with me." And I thought that he got more upset about the dog, which I understand, but not the human life. And it felt like a Michael Vick moment. You know what I'm saying? Like,
those are kind of apple oranges comparisons, because once Luthor shot and killed Malik, there's nothing he can do about that but mourn him. He can't do anything about that. He has a line that he's established for himself, which is no matter what, he's not gonna assert his power and go and kill Lex Luthor because Lex Luthor did that. He'll make sure that he goes to jail, but he's not gonna go and hurt him.
I know he's gonna not kill him, but I felt like there was more emotion about the dog than the human, in my opinion. Like he literally killed a human in front of him.
And Superman literally shed tears and cried.
What's that?
He literally sheds tears and cries.
Because he couldn't do anything.
That
he was
couldn't do
immobilized.
anything in that moment.
But I felt like there was a moment missed when he finally confronted Luthor. Like how he confronted Luthor about that dog, I felt like the energy wasn't the same about the human when he got a chance to do that. That's my gripe. That's just my one gripe about Superman's character.
I would agree with you if one had followed the other. The dog incident was before he saw Lex Luthor kill a human being, and he mourned for that human being. And he also knew that Luthor could not murder the dog, but he still wanted the dog. I get what you're saying, but only if if one had followed the other. But the him seeing Luthor murder Malik, he reacted the way he reacted, more emotional than honestly I would have, because I just barely knew him.
I felt again because from my impression of Superman, the way he cherishes all life, because even Lois says, you look at everything as beautiful. She tells him this. And it doesn't matter what walk of life. She takes everybody the same way. if you meet him for a second or he knows him for a long time. And I felt like the preservation of human life. I felt like his reaction to it after the fact he escaped, going towards Luther and saying, "Man, I haven't forgot you killed this dude." Like
Yeah,
that still weighs. It's still the same day.
I get
I
what you're
feel like
saying in that,
I feel like
in
he
that
didn't.
regard. He didn't bring it up. He didn't
Yeah,
bring it up.
he-
And
like
he did.
you just totally disregarded that. But that's my personal issue with his, because when you said no one dies and you had the strong, when Josh said he had the strong take about the dog and what was about to happen about that dog, I was like, man, the energy wasn't the same.
Right,
I know he cried.
But to me, I feel it contextually. I kind of land on this with D more so. Contextually, the idea being no one dies when he's able to prevent it. He wasn't able to do anything to prevent that man's death. Like if he wasn't depowered, he would have jumped in front of that bullet, snatched it, looked at it, before the flare of the gunshot and the recoil even is visible.
That's fair.
He's already, you know what I mean? Like so the caveat is when he's able to prevent it. Even Superman can't be everywhere at once.
I'm not saying he wasn't going to prevent it. It's just the emotional load of seeing a
it doesn't. To me, that's not going to land if he can't do it. He cried. The only thing he could do was mourn the guy.
The dog is also connected to his cousin, which is a part of the whole family, which is the last of the Kryptonian.
A family member versus like the coffee cart guy. I'm not saying his life is worth less.
But again, they build up Superman in a way that he tried. I mean, like everything matters. He's trusting.
Yeah.
I said,
and I think
that's fair. That's a fair assessment.
Yeah, I wouldn't begrudge you that.
Yeah. So let me get through some other, because that's just one. I'm just going back to your point about the life.
Okay.
There, minor gripes. The interview part where Lois and him going at it, I was like, that shit got loud. No one heard this. You know what I'm saying? I said, no one in the Metropolis. I get it. We have a world built in Metropolis that they've seen the fantastical. Superman is around. No one runs from danger. Like, I also felt like the other heroes have no regard for the human life around there. They're just like, kill this thing. And that thing was about to fall on the building. Do you know how much people would have been dying if that thing was killed? I always felt like the more contemporary Supermans, it is collateral damage. And it's just like, people are going to die. Whatever happens, happens.
You saw Superman trying to mitigate that, but not the corporate heroes, because they were established as corporate heroes.
So, and again, this is my limited knowledge on how Green, because I was like, do you have to be pure of heart to be a lantern bearer or whatever?
You have to have strong willpower.
It's weird.
It's weird though, because nobody can explain how Guy Gardner got a ring.
Yeah.
Right.
Again, my limited knowledge, just based off how I interpret it, like being a Green Lantern, you got to cherish life. Yeah, and I feel like he did not cherish any life. He's just like, let's get rid of this, and whoever dies.
Guy Gardner's kind of always been that way.
But I like him. I still like Guy Gardner.
Oh, Guy is great.
I felt like the crowd turned on Superman a little too quick, the majority, because I'm like, bro, it established a lot of things in 3 years, and all of a sudden, because you find this mention, which is a bold choice. Now, I don't know all the lore about Kal-El's parents, but if that was a choice to make his parents like, yo, be on some invincible stuff,
right?
I was like, that's cool. I just wasn't aware of that. Yeah. I thought Green Lantern and Hawk Girl chilling while the world was being destroyed was a little weird. They didn't do anything until the umpteenth hour. I felt like Superman not using his laser vision for majority of the fight was a little weird. I was like, you have this power, use it a little bit more.
Superman wouldn't. It's lethal. That's how he's always been with that laser vision.
But that
he's always been.
The clone should have been getting the laser eyes a little bit more, in my opinion. I thought Luthor's cronies.
He still wanted to say the clone. I'm sorry. I'm just I'm answering as you go along. He still wanted to save the clone, like he did.
Yeah, the whole book. Like I said, everybody lives, man.
And that goes back to my Malik point. But anyway. So again, I think Luthor's cronies were a little bit, his cronies were a little cringe. They were a little too into it for my taste. I was like, they look like, It was a
That's
little weird.
classic Otis, though. I mean, again, I guess because I know a little
Yeah,
bit
you
more
know more. So
about
again,
his world.
yeah,
Otis
correct me.
is down for everything that Luther does. Like
Yes.
he
If
is
that's
down
Otis,
for
that's
that.
cool. But I think I was like, yo, all of them on that same wave. They just following. Cool.
Proximity to power.
Yeah.
It's what he. It's like the people. It's like how people now don't understand how
MAGA.
certain individuals are a part of MAGA or a part of that. It's a proximity to power. Going back to what we was talking about with Star Wars, with the ISB, with Palpatine, it is a proximity to power that draws these people to individuals like that.
I thought it was fine. I'm not opposed to that. It's just the fact that they just felt a little blind, like we're just following this leader and we're gonna just we're all about it. I'm like, yeah, there's some levels to it. Like in the ISB, they all wanted proximity to power, but they didn't feel cringe to me. I feel like his cronies felt a little cringe in my opinion. That's just my opinion.
I saw his cronies as being scared, stupid humans, in that they are extreme. They are adapting his fear more than him, because unlike he has the resources, money, and power to do what he's doing, cause problems for Superman, but Superman can take all of them out like that. And it was the same with Luthor, but I think it's more so I interpret it as because this is the way the engineer talked about calling him an it. And they were saying, they were desperate to take him out. I thought it was a little bit about that, but I could see what
and I looked at it more as almost like a parallel to almost like a MAGA thing, right? Like everyone buying into whatever that vision was to a point of ad nauseum, to a point of cultistess level. And that's kind of like how I looked at a lot of the cronies. And it was like not saying
MAGA.
that like they were literally like the way they looked at it, like say for instance when they were using Bizarro to like beat up on Superman, they were like happy every time something happened, right? They were like cheering.
Bizarro was a totally different.
Yeah, Ultraman. But I think
that was Bizarro, but
it was Bizarro in the movie, but
called
that's what
Ultraman. That's why he was looking like when he took the mask off. That's why Corn Sweat performed him with like a slight, like his eye was like droopy, and establishing that Luther cloned him and that he controls his motions. Ultraman I think he just took the name.
I'll look into it. I'm not 100% sure. I felt like they were different characters, but I'll look into this.
I mean, I'm confirming it for you, but feel free.
Okay, yeah, for sure.
But it's definitely the unidentified clone. If you click on it, it'll take you to Bizarro's page.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Two more things.
In my last name, man.
Yeah, my last two cons. And you guys know more about this Hawk Girl character than I do. I did not like the screen. It got a little annoying. So hold on.
I felt the same.
And it felt like Batman's second voice. I'm like, why is this necessary?
Wow.
And so if that's a thing, I'm ignorant to it. So I was like, why is she screaming?
Yeah, no.
And my last thing, there was no context or backstory on the missing people Lex kidnapped. Like there was like no context. Like, hey, these people are missing in like a news like it was just they were missing. I was like, yo, these people are missing, and no one talks about this. Like there's no reference,
especially like his ex-girlfriend goes missing. Nobody, and he's not under investigation.
Also, my last point. Will Lex Luthor go to trial for murder? And how he's going to get out of that? Because he murdered somebody. Superman saw it.
Yeah.
Well, I could also see him still getting off, because that's the whole thing with Lex. But
will they address that?
The only witnesses are Superman and Metamorpho, and the world won't trust Metamorpho over Lex Luthor. And Superman is, they know that they're enemies. So again, you can spin it. A good lawyer will
but they broke everyone out. They broke everyone out of that place. So right.
Let me ask one more question.
Coming out of that situation.
To the panel.
They got everybody out. Yeah.
Was Superman holding back, and how strong is his the Lex Luthor's team of like soldiers? Because Superman was he holding back, or
he's always holding back.
Holding back. That's his whole thing. There's and this is why we compare it to I just want to say I did hate that screen, I
Yes.
love Isabella Merced in almost every performance and thing
But
she
why was
does.
that necessary?
But that
Shout out to Dora the Explorer.
that scream was not working, and I think it's because only certain people can pull that off, like that ulating scream, like Lucy Lawless in Xena or something like that,
Yeah.
where it's not excruciating, annoying. She doesn't have that voice that doesn't crack and make you want to like stick a pencil in your ear, the sharp
Yeah.
point. But the comparison to Batman the animated series is the reason I made that is for the same thing you guys brought up. Superman's always holding back. There's one moment in Justice League. Well, there's one
Unlimited.
moment
Yeah.
where he finally says to that I'm not gonna hold back because you can take it. He tells this character, you can take it, and I'm about to let loose. And he does, and it's like he's as powerful as our son.
Yeah.
Like that's the best way you can describe it is he is as powerful as soul itself because he draws his power from the solar energy of the sun. So he was definitely holding back. That's the reason why they were able to get him the way they did. But he could still do things that they couldn't, like fly them all the way outside of the atmosphere. Well, at least Bizarro was fine, but the engineers started to have problem because she got to breathe too, and now and now stuff is freezing up, and so like
I was just
he
trying to figure out how strong his soldiers were because they showed the slow mo him knocking the teeth out, and I'm like, how strong are they to just like take him down?
You mean like the Raptor
Yeah,
soldier?
the Raptor
Yeah.
soldiers.
I didn't
They-
like that. I didn't like the whole that visual of the teeth hitting the camera and flying out because of that very reason. Most likely, if Superman hit them hard enough to knock the teeth out, he would have
killed them.
It broke their jaw.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all of that would have gone right with it.
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
whole
And then- and
camera
actually-
lens would have been painted red.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and actually, that's the whole point of Invincible as a comparison, right? Like the whole thing about Invincible is essentially like, what if Superman didn't hold back? And that's kind of like the basis, like literally the whole story of that is you have a Superman character that's not holding back, and when he doesn't, what happens? Blood, guts, bone. The whole world gets destroyed.
Yeah, viscera.
Yeah, and so like that's why in like DC, like even in it's funny because this happens with a lot of characters. Spider-Man is a good example too, where not going too much of an off tangent, but when Doc Ock becomes Peter Parker for a short period of time, he realizes how powerful Spider-Man is, and he's kind of like, "What the hell? You've been pulling back this whole time." Yeah. And again, Peter Parker is like, "Well, I don't want to hurt anyone. This is why I don't do that." Yeah. And like but Doc Ock doesn't have that moral failing, so he's like, "I'm freaking." Yeah. I'm maiming and breaking people's bones all day. And Superman is the same way. Where like if he lets loose, it's against Darkseid, it's against a Doomsday, it's against
or an Anti-Monitor or someone like that. Like that's 100%. The only person. Or he tried to let loose on Dr. Manhattan, which was funny.
That was funny. That was hilarious, by the way. That was super like to the point where it was kind of like Dr. Manhattan was like, "What?"
He just stood there and the fist is coming toward him, and then like literally as he hit, it just goes black, and then you see Dr. Manhattan talking about what happened.
Yeah, great comic moment. But yeah, like you said, like the that knocking of the tooth part, I think that was kind of silly because it kind of didn't give the feel like. When all aspects of this movie, there's a lot of good feels of Superman, and then there's other parts where it almost depowers, if you want to put it that way.
So it's kind of like a little too far into guns, like what we've said about Taika with Thor. Not as bad as that.
Not as bad, yeah.
But not nearly. But just some of his isms work better for different stories. Like those things work for a Suicide Squad or a Guardians of the Galaxy. It doesn't work as much for Superman. Like I like the kaiju action, but at the same time, I felt we could have did without that. That could have been time given to something else because the kaiju was just kind of let loose, and then all of a sudden, next scene, it's big and every. So to everybody's point on here, that was one of the things that I was like, yeah, this takes me out of it a little bit. I'm not saying that I'm not calling it bad, but I would have wished there would have been more, to Cam's point, context given about where Luthor got this kaiju or why that kaiju specifically, but I get he used it to introduce the Justice Gang, which that joke was another thing that kept going on far too much. And the fact that I thought James Gunn, you gotta all millennials ain't like it's, it's the way you got Hawk Girl acting. Like everybody born after your generation ain't that nihilistic about everything. And so I because that the way she performed reminded me a lot of the Rat Catcher and Suicide Squad, in that she's very useful. He shows that they have a wisdom, but it's covered with laziness and this
it's
kind of
flippant.
I don't care. Exactly, it's flippant.
Very
It's
flippant.
like I don't care, but I do care, and things like that. So yeah, he could have used that actress a lot better, and that's the because she is super talented, and so the screen wasn't working, but just the fact that every time she said a line, it was usually just a response to what Guy was doing or that Justice Gang joke. So I wasn't into that.
And it didn't really add to because it's one of those things where it was like, if that was her character and that was what's supposed to happen, you probably could have took her out and you'd been fine. And it would have been one less
Absolutely.
character. Like
you wouldn't have noticed her missing.
There, but she didn't. They didn't give you enough of her to actually like Guy Gardner. We got enough that we're like, oh, there's a reason why he's here. He's like, he's sarcastic. He said it is, but for her, it was kind of like, she's there. But if you literally took her out of the story, you wouldn't be any worse for the wearer of that.
We never even hear her name. Actually,
I'm gonna ask you guys not to talk about my girl Isabella like that. That's
not
my
her
girl.
fault. It's just
I'm joking.
I'm saying we love Isabella. We're just saying that she could have been given a lot more.
So D, I had my pros and cons, but I had my middle ground, and I felt the movie was very James Gunnish, and I was like, I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, because it works in certain aspects and it don't work on other aspects.
Yep.
And I think he probably, I would hope that he learned that, because we saw that he did learn that from Guardians 1 and how he wrote Ronan as a villain. And then when you get to 2, Ego is a whole nother thing. Like that's a real villainous story right there. Yeah. And then with the High Evolutionary. So I agree with you. I think there was a lot of moments where, as I said, he's bold. And that's why I can't, in these situations, he makes some bold choices that I can't argue with. The way that the movie starts with showing us a bloodied Superman is a bold move versus him, what we would get later after he's healed with the whole shot of the S on the chest. Starting off and showing vulnerability is a good way to go with Superman, because it's so quickly you get, and this is my problem with Superman, you get bogged down with the fact that he is Superman. At the end of the day, there's only about 2 or 3 beings in all of DC that can put him down. And most of the time, they never do it permanently. He's always clinging to if there's solar energy in some aspect where he is, and it's yellow, he can cling on to life. It don't matter how much damage he's taken. And so
super annoying.
Over the years, and especially with Snyder's work, that has been amplified of this sort of to double down on Superman as the God, the Christ-like figure, and that is not who he is. You're supposed to forget that this dude is as powerful as he is. Like literally, so when he's in the scene with Lex, you don't think in your mind, oh man, and just all you gotta do is this, and Lex is dead. You're not supposed to think that. You're supposed to be like, man, I hope he can figure out how to stop Lex right now. Even though he can stop Lex right now by just doing this, whoop, on his head, and
they show that and they show that that's part of the reason why the Injustice video game series and comic is so good, because there's a point where basically the Joker tricks him into thinking that Lois is a bad guy, blah 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 blah. So he's killing Lois, and he kills Lois, and then when he finally, I think he uses the Riddler, but Scarecrow's is gas or whatever.
Yeah.
So it tricks Superman to thinking Lois is a villain. He kills Lois. Lois is pregnant at the time. Superman goes crazy, kills the Joker, and then the Joker was done. The Joker did that because of Luthor. Then goes over and kills Luthor. And then it's funny because those scenes are like 2 pages. And then it almost reminds you, like, oh, that's right. He literally can kill anyone he wants at any given time, and he actually does. And so
it's
I
like
think that
when they do the Justice Lords in the Justice League, where Luthor tells him, he's like, this is because of your ego. Like you could stop any of this. You can make the world a utopia by your will, but you play this game with me and you let me get, all this. And he's like, you know what? You right. Heat vision. it's over. And now he's unleashed. So we had to. There's been a lot of that coming to the forefront. Those stories used to be special because we know that that's far from Superman, like Red Sun, and like all of these stories where it posits what if he had not landed on a farm in Kansas with just so happened to be 2 decent Americans who raised him to be a good person, a good human being, and ironically better than most human beings. And I think that was one of the things I liked about thematically you see by the end of that film is that he is I didn't like that he said it. I did not like that he took that he met. I was very disappointed with James Gunn because he had showed it the whole time. And to have him sit there and say, oh, well, you know what? I'm more human than all these humans because I try every day and I don't kill anybody. And I could do it, but I don't. And to have him say all of that, it just didn't work. And because you were showing it up until that moment, because that's true. He's more human than most humans in that.
He carries it to an extreme.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I like that. Like, so I actually liked the Lois and Clark interview part because of that aspect, to show that dramatic contrast. Because I think, like, one thing I would say from the Cavill Superman is, like, you kind of know his motivations. Like, it gives you a sense of like why he does what he does, that kind of stuff. And this one, you didn't really get to see it too much until that scene of, like, he's more the optimist, naivete, and then Lois is more the skeptics and the like, she questions everything. And I think that scene was cool because, one, I actually like the written dialogue of it. That's one part of Kunn's strong parts. Like, he's good at written dialogue for 2 people talking to each other. He's good at that aspect of it. But it also showed the stark contrast of how Superman looks at the world and how Lois did. And that was a very pivotal point. And by putting the backdrop later on as the quote unquote Justice Gang fighting a big ass random monster, and he's like, oh yeah, that's just, they got that, they're good. Like, that was a fun gun thing that he would do as this serious conversation.
That was a good mythology moment where you see that. I would have done it differently, but I did like that the backdrop is Superman is like, oh, that's just an imp. They take care of those things all the time. They don't really need me for that. And you see, as the scene plays out, as it ends, they do put it down. And so I thought that again, these little world building things definitely help to, again, bring us back to who Superman was. Lois in that scene in the interview is all of us, because in this world, we're skeptical of a person like that, of an individual who is so altruistic that the more altruistic they are, the more suspicious the human world tends to be, right? That's the story of the eight as old as they go. The same thing can be said about Christ. It was his altruism, that figures altruism and kindness and things like that, turn humans at the time to feel like it's too good to be true. And the moment Lois enters his house, and I like that there was that uncertainty about their relationship. This is the early days of their relationship, where it's largely they come over, they hook up, they might eat a little bit, but if they say some bad things to each other, one person might dip off, and then they wrap back around. But when she comes to his house and she sees his room, it dawns on her, yes, this is just a big fool in a suit, that that is literally a farm boy. Like there's
A
no
country
more to
bumpkin.
him than that.
Country
There's
bumpkin.
no more
Country
to him.
bumpkin.
Yep.
Yeah, and I like that
love
they.
and the jellyfish
go ahead,
scene.
Josh.
The jellyfish scene was great because I mean they're having a really serious, heartfelt discussion, and in the background, Guy Gardner forms a bat and is basically beating the crap out of the jellyfish.
Very James Gunnish there.
Very
Yeah,
James
100%.
Gunn,
And also
I love
very
it.
Guy Gardner though.
And I love
very
very
Guy
much
Gardner.
so. And I think the beauty of that scene is somehow in the middle of all that foolishness, it doesn't undercut what's in the foreground.
Right.
At
What's
all.
at stake in the scene between those two.
Yeah. Even with all that
Exactly.
silliness going on in the background, it doesn't undercut. Like I'm chuckling, but I'm paying more. Like I'm watching what's happening, but my attention is more focused on the two of them and what they're talking about. But at the same time, watching a giant jellyfish getting beaten to death by Guy Gardner with a bat, with a Green Lantern infused bat is just it. Like you said, it's pure James Gunn.
And I think like to Cam's credit, like I like the gunness of this whole film, like you said, some parts of it's good, some parts of it's not so good, but like it may definitely put a stamp on it. And I think James Gunn doing a Superman movie feels more Superman than say our boy He Who Will Not Be Named doing a Man of Steel, where that one had a tone that the tonally was darker and like the motivations were different and all these types of things. So it didn't feel like the character.
Yeah,
now,
someone brought up that that version was mean, like how when the dudes were messing with him in the bar and then he goes out and trashes their truck. And I'm like, yeah, that's him kind of blowing off steam. I forgave that at the time.
Yeah.
Didn't think too much about it. But it is an example when you take all the other stuff in totality of it being not close to the character that we're familiar with.
Yeah,
and I think on its own, you know, that's a take from the first Superman. Was it first or second Superman from Superman 2, where you know he walks into the diner, he's completely depowered, guy beats the crap out of him. He makes sure to go back to that diner at the end before the end of the movie and basically does something very similar. So it wasn't that far afield, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's like the guy got to blow off steam somehow. He's got all that power. He's got to do something.
Yeah, like he's not just going to getting sunned like that, and but so many times. So yeah,
and that's also the reason why someone like Lex and even Bruce Wayne, Batman, dislike Superman. That hubris, right? You really do believe that you're better than everyone, and it's annoying. And this is why
you have the power and you don't use it. That makes you better than us. That's Lex's issue. I think with Bruce is just a whole more fundamental thing of not knowing if he could ever trust an alien, and that's what it comes down for him. But that changes as they become friends.
And his belief that no one's truly altruistic, and Superman is very much that. He is the polar opposite. Like if there is a truly purely altruistic being in the sphere of a Batman, it's Clark, and Clark is the perfect contrast to everything. To Superman. Superman is the perfect contrast to Batman
and that's why Wonder Woman is the perfect middle ground, and that's why those three as the sort of pillars of DC have always worked. They have had comics where Superman will say flat out that this is a comic where he said he was being interviewed by a little girl and she asked him if he would win in a fight versus Batman. He said, no, I would lose. And she's like, how? You're powerful and all this stuff. And he's like, I would lose because I would never fight him to the point where I beat him. Like I would never do that. I would never try to beat him. And that is, and you hear him say that, and
that's his core.
And Batman has said about Superman, he's like, the reason we rely on Clark to be the moral high ground is because he's a good man. I'm not.
Yep.
he said that. You know who else was like that? Hawk Girl, because she is not above killing.
And they should have expanded and tried and show the difference that's Kendra Saunders. Kendra Saunders is a human metahuman, exactly, and not Shiera Hall. Who? So I
So,
didn't like
hold on, let me
the.
pause because this would confuse me because I was watching Justice League and I'm used to that Hawk Girl. And
That
I'm
Yeah.
wasn't
like,
who that
so
was.
I had to do
Yeah,
some
no.
homework. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
Kevin
hold on.
Saunders is a human metahuman, and I forget
That is the reincarnation of
one of the
Yeah,
Thanagarry.
and
I
I
forget
think
what the
yeah, and that's part of the reason why I said like you probably could have just took Hawk Arrow out altogether because again, Cam, you're the great example. You're watching Justice League, and so you go into Superman. You're like, oh, Shire Hall, cool. And you're
Shire
like,
Hall, yeah.
wait, that's not her. Why isn't she like murking people? And so they didn't really establish that separation where it's like, no, this is.
She
like,
also had a much better war cry than this.
Yeah.
But also, this goes back to my earlier point. A lot of characters, not enough time for me to invest.
And this is a gun thing, right? Yeah, and this is the thing where one of my friends brought that up too, where like Gunn is really good when he has about a certain amount of characters, but once he gets a little bit too much, then there might be ones that kind of just falls to the wayside. And I think this is that one where I think the way they did that. The other part that we talked about it briefly, but yeah, Millie Alcott as Supergirl was great. Like it was just enough that we needed, not anything more, not anything less.
Yep.
It made it organized a reason of why we had Crypto. Did you need her in the movie? Yeah, maybe not, but because she was there. Yeah,
it was
exactly.
and it established that those two have good chemistry already. I mean, when
exactly.
she walks in, flies in, and he sees her, it's not like he's seeing someone he doesn't know. It's like, oh, my cousin.
Exactly.
He's like, yeah, my cousin's back.
Cousin?
Get your dog. He's already. I'm tired of him, and all of that stuff.
So this is the thing that threw me off too.
So
because in the beginning it established it's 3 years in, and I'm thinking Superman is vetted and he's a veteran. He ain't learned stuff. It felt like I was watching Superman year one based off how he approached things. But but that in the overall arc of it is just that he hasn't changed since he's got to Earth. He's just the same old.
And that's consistent.
Yeah.
Yes. Superman typically learns how to better fight his enemies, specific people, but Superman has always been, I fly right into it. Because I can, because most likely I will survive.
Which also made the jellyfish thing a little weird. Because like ordinarily what I'm accustomed to is he can't help himself. He's in the middle of what I expected was he's in the middle of a conversation with Lois. Jellyfish thing happens out the window. He looks over like, oh crap! All right, I'll be right back. And
I thought that was what was going to happen too. I was very surprised that it just played out the way it did.
And he kind of just shrugged it off, like
a bold choice to show that he's human, that he has human emotion.
But it didn't work, as we talked about. He does bold things, but some of them work and some of them don't. And you're right, Cam. This is one that didn't work.
It's the gun stuff. It's the gun stuff.
Yeah.
Also, and this is my own personal gripe, when you do jujitsu moves, do it right. When I seen the clone of Superman do an arm bar,
I knew you were going to say that, and I wanted to see if you. Like, I had two people tell me that same thing, and I was all laughing because I was like, "Ooh!" When I saw it, because at least I know what it is. But I'm not a jujitsu person at all, but I do know what that is, and I was like, "Ooh!" I think the jujitsu homies, they could be terrible. That one. It looked really bad.
And to be honest, that's him. He does things because he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to do it the right way. Yeah. All he did was wanted to try to grab his arm and jack him up.
But second of all,
it's all right.
I agree. I get what you're saying, Cam. I totally there with you.
And this is just because I do jujitsu. So if I didn't do jujitsu, I wouldn't have thought nothing of it. Because I'm a practitioner of the art.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a critique on it. But the cool thing, again, Crypto had his moment. He had his Hulk smash moment with Lex Luthor. And I was like, oh, it's a little homage to the Hulk versus Loki. And just, Lex Luthor's having this moment, and then Crypto comes in and just smacks him around a little bit. I was like, oh, this is a Hulk smash moment for Crypto. I thought that was a little clever. And I don't know if it was an intentional nod or homage to the Marvel thing. But I was like, but I was like, I took note on that. It didn't bug me anything. It was just like, okay, cool. Crypto's that dog. No holds barred.
I don't like Crypto at all in any involvement, just because in some stories he's fine, but he gets in the way. I'm sorry. Like, I didn't none of the stuff that he was doing to me should have been there. I mean, there was the moment at the beginning that was fine, and a few other moments, but there were times where it was just too much crypto, and I was like,
think it was just their way to
him
explain his cousin. It was just his way to introduce his cousin.
Yeah.
Like, this is why he cared. It was
and
poorly
I
done.
get that. I get that. The first opening scene, good. The scene where he
Where they
is
bust
helping
into
him
the
fight,
fortress, yeah.
that's good. But the other stuff where he's taking Terrific's drones, and you know they got him in the tank, and he's doing it. It just is a, first of all, you can't have him on screen too long, because then you remember he's a dog with Kryptonian powers,
right?
And that's even dangerous than Superman.
Yeah, because his understanding is so severely limited.
He's a dumb dog, and I don't mean to say it in that way.
Well, not just dumb, but cantankerous. Like, he's not an obedient dog, which is even
worse. And so doesn't have. So that's why I wanted him to be as minimal on screen as possible.
That's fair.
Because the more he's on screen, the more it feels really corny and just it shouldn't be there.
That's my cringe. Those are the cringe moments. I was like, this movie's got cringe moments in it.
And that's the silly family-ish, right? Like the fun part of like, oh, this is cute dog, blah, 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 merchandise idea, blah, blah, blah.
Definitely was cringy, though.
Yeah. And then let's take the other thing. I like Lex Luthor, like how he was portrayed, and like even the motivations and all that. Like that it was really, really good.
And his introduction was great. Like in the control room on some, okay, switch here. Now do this. All right, now do that. That was pure Lex Luthor.
And to Cam's credit, I like, there is a level of frat boyish to it, and so there's a line, like going back to what we said about Gunn, right? So when it was a little bit too good, so it was a little bit too bad. And I thought like the bulk of Lex was pretty good. There's a little part of the moments where he gets to that frat boy area where it's kind of like, you could have pulled it back a little bit. But I thought in general, the way Lex was portrayed and how he did it was actually pretty interesting.
There's one moment where that frat part of boy thing that I did not like from Lex, and that was when he threw that pencil at Tessmacher. I was like, that's Lex is many things. He's never been hinted at as being like aggressive towards the women.
Temper tantrum-y.
At least in that way. Like he'll yell and he'll say, most he's gonna yell some big word, some big vocabulary or something. But when he went out of his way to grab the cup and specifically throw it at her, I was like, okay, we're going too far. That's really not Luthor.
And that's
don't
why
have to do that to make him a villain.
I felt like they did things to Luthor that was beneath him. Because that's not the Luthor I'm used to.
That moment, that was one of those moments when he threw that at Tessmacher. I was like, okay, no.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. Like there's again, 80% of it really cool. Then there's some moments where I was like, I don't know if that was like they could have pulled it back a little bit.
I would even go so far as to say 90. It wasn't that much stuff that flew that far afield. He didn't go too far. It was just little niggling things that you're just like, wouldn't have done that. But all right, cool.
I would say that they do become numerous when you really think about them. Sometimes they get in the way. I wouldn't say 90, but I would go a little about in the middle between 85 and 80.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, and then lastly, what kind of along with the Hawk Girl kind of a thing, like the engineer is a legacy Wildstorm character, Jim Lee's universe that he had brought into DC, along with Drifter, Wildcats, all that kind of stuff. And the engineer is actually a really interesting and cool character, kind of an interesting backstory, that kind of stuff. Much like Hawk Girl, you didn't really get too much about her besides that she can, you know what she can do. You know that she's mad at Superman, but that's pretty much all you get. Who is she?
Why is she there? Yeah,
I was very surprised they didn't establish Cadmus and Lex Luthor being, I was thinking the same and that being
because they were angling hard in that direction. Yeah,
and that giving Lex his surface motivation to mess with Superman and get involved with these contracts. The him buying land and the whole having the Luthoria, I saw it on they never said it, but it was written on the page. I was like, oh my God. Lex, that's classic Lex, but it's still as stupid as it sounds.
It's
but I
cringy.
didn't. That whole thing didn't work for me. That I thought, but also because it was clear that the president character was a combination of Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. It was so obvious that it was hilarious, and that was clearly the Israeli-Palestinian conflict fictionalized. Some of that didn't work for me, and that's why I said I can't say that it totally would, like the writing was as strong as it's been in the past, like with his Guardians work. But it wasn't, the violations weren't enough to throw me. And I think Cam put it best in that it is very up the middle for James Gunn in terms of the way he tells stories.
I was right before I was going to say, I had a note, middle ground. Is Gunn pushing a political agenda? Am I with it or am I kind of whatever? Well, it was one of those comments.
And so, I think my faux bizarro, if you will, issues with the movie. It seemed like it was very woke. It seemed like it was very pro-immigration. It seemed like it was very anti-Trump. And I take major issue with that. Okay. Okay. Like, Superman is way.
We forgot anti-oligarch and anti-billionaire.
Right, anti-oligarch and just way too political, I just feel like, I feel like, James Gunn and DC and Warner Brothers have an agenda, and, I want my movies to be a little bit more neutral. They don't have to tell stories about, political things like the immigration thing. Just, it was a bit much.
Yeah, someone said that Snyder's Superman was for adults, where this one was for kids, and I was like, only an idiot would not understand the oxymoronic statement they just made, the paradoxical statement you just made about a superhero movie being more for an adult than it is one being more for an adult versus the other one being more for a child. I think both of them were meant for kids that just adults happen to enjoy. On occasion.
Every day I get closer to being on D'Angelo's team.
I refuse to get into this type of discourse. I refuse it. Yeah. Never again.
Nope. Sometimes humans is not the brightest. Not the brightest.
It's just it's silly.
It's there. I like that it's there. It's cool. You take what you take. I like one take I will say that I enjoyed was someone was like, if you watch this film and that part of it is something that you are offended by, that might say more about your own politics than it says about the actual film itself.
Yeah,
and that's kind of on you. So
and your knowledge of the character, because
so figure that out on your own. Well, and you figured out. We could go deeper in it, but we don't need to. But I thought that was a funny part.
A bigger point is that
till you find out that Superman was created by two Jewish kids. Oh boy!
Well, people are pointing that out, and they're saying that it's ironic that two Jewish men created Superman, and now it's being used to target or whatever. But anyway, all good film and all good any kind of art reflects the zeitgeist of the times that it exists in. And so just like this and many other things, they're all going to have some kind of parallel or grounded connection to whatever was happening at the time, unless they completely just make something up and pick a different era to focus on for their inspiration. Otherwise, the spirit of the times will always creep into these movies. It's just a matter
if it's
of
well done.
Well, it creeps in good or bad. It's just a matter of who is doing it and whether they do it well. But it's
to
almost
a greater or lesser degree, right?
Yeah, it's almost unavoidable. But
at this point, it's the currents of the times. All right, so now we're at the point where we can finally get some actual scores from it, and I will start with Cam first. Cam, give me your score, 0 to 10. You know what it is?
6.5.
Wow.
All right, 6.5. Josh, what we got?
I'd give it a solid 7.5, maybe 8.
And then D?
I'll give it a 7 out of 10.
I give it about 7.5, 8. Like I actually enjoyed it. I thought it was fun and entertaining. Now I would say, where do you guys where do you guys think it's going to go from here? I think that's the more interesting question as opposed to the scores. I think like now that Gunn has kind of reestablished what the DCU is going to be kind of be at a ground level and a world building that he was like already kind of did. I like that there's elements in the background and all these things that kind of like give you a clue of to what's going on in this world now, which is good. So I like for me, I'm more curious, right? Like now I kind of want to see Peacemaker in season 2. I want to see what they're gonna do with Maxwell Lord and Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl now, right? I'm more curious. I'm a little bit more curious now about Supergirl. Like not like super curious, but I'm all like, oh, now I actually am curious about what's going to go on next. Where before I just saw a lot of logos and a lot of things that's going to come out, and I was kind of like, we'll see what happens. But now I'm like, oh, maybe this might be good.
Now you want to see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
I think I look forward to the fact that it's all going to be, if what he says is true and all goes according to what they're planning, that each film is going to be its own thing. It's going to exist in this wider world, but it will be tonally and narratively its own thing, like Clayface and Supergirl and The Authority, which is coming. And I really do like that it's designed as not just an arbitrary phase 1, and then later we call it the Infinity Saga, but this is gods and monsters, and they established that at the very beginning, like because we're talking about metahumans and aliens, we're talking about literally figures that exist in this continuities as gods and monsters. So I'm curious to see how that all shakes out, and looking forward to. I surprisingly enjoyed Peacemaker season 1. So I'm looking forward to Peacemaker season 2. And I'm also looking forward to Supergirl because I'm a fan of Millie Alcock as of House of the Dragon. I thought she should have gotten more in that show. It's a shame that they didn't spend more time with young Rhaenyra. But I'm happy that she got this role. And I look forward to seeing a well-done Kara Zor-El in the movies. We had a good one in TV. And now I think it's time to have a well-done Kara and a well-done Wonder Woman, so that we can erase the recent memory of Gal Gadot from our mind.
Oh, you know what? I forgot to mention. I actually liked the addition of Rick Flag and like the subtleness of him in it. Wasn't too much? Wasn't too little? I would have loved a Waller, but Waller is a big character to be in something like this.
But notice he was a general now, and remember he was a colonel in Creature Commando. Mm-hmm. So that implies that some time has passed since. That incident.
Since Creature Commandos, right?
Yeah, so there's another gap that he gave us that he's saying we're going to fill that in. And
I like that though. And that was another several like world building part that was really cool because I like that. At first, I was thinking that we would get a Waller cameo, but I'm actually kind of glad we did it because Waller now. One thing I will say for DC in the comics is, and there was a big event, whatever. And Waller was the big bad of it. And the way that she was portrayed in that was really dope because it elevated her to a level of a Lex Luthor of that in the DC universe. And so it was actually kind of cool that they finally gave her the just due. So not putting her in and having Rick Flag instead was actually a good little move because then now you can establish through later on.
It shows the level that she's at. Like since the end of Peacemaker, and then we saw in Creature Commandos, Waller is moving further up into like basically being the unseen hand that controls everything.
Yeah,
exactly. But it's all right.
I'll say something real quick. Go ahead, Josh. You got something to say?
I was gonna say, I'd say pretty much what Gunn laid out in that interview that I mentioned earlier, that I referenced before. He's basically looking at making each movie their own thing, and that can only serve to broaden the universe. Again, Marvel very frequently tonally paints with a very similar brush with a lot of their movies. If I said all of them before, I totally take that back. Not all of them, but most of them.
Yeah, I'd say most of them, with the exception of maybe like 2 or 3.
Yeah, and And I think this is gonna be a turning point where Marvel's gonna have to step up their game. You know, making each movie its own thing will only serve to sort of thicken the oatmeal, as it were. Um, and yeah, and he's a good storyteller, so he knows how to establish certain things for the films. I'm willing to wager that it won't be, making movies on rails like Marvel has been in a lot of instances. I have a feeling it's going to be like, all right, this is what's been written. Here, go direct it. And before you hand it off to a director, you already have their pitch. You already know what they're going to do. You're not getting dates before the movie before the script is done. So you have room, and like I said, you're not riding your bike with training wheels, as it were. So I'm very curious and very eager to see what it is that he's got in store for the larger, broader universe that he's going to begin to craft.
I'm gonna go out.
Cam,
I'm gonna
give me the
say,
last word.
yeah, I really don't care about the universe. I care more about if there's some spin-off TV shows about other characters that's filling in, like the Clone Wars type stuff. So if he does like Peacemaker, like I'm more into that. The Creature Commandos, with Guns World, not so
So
much.
you'll probably get into Lance when it comes, because
Yeah,
Lance
like
Lanterns
yeah,
is going to be dope.
true
I saw.
detective esque type
Yeah.
of thing.
A cop show. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm more into his like smaller stories because, like, again, it's not a problem, but I'm kind of getting a little James Gunn fatigue because I'm recognizing his work a little too. I'm too familiar with it for his movies. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just a personal preference. But I also like his TV shows or his like smaller work dealing with the DC universe, which is fine. I'm more into that. So
Yeah.
when he has these little small shows or these little mini series, I'm going to be more focused on that than the bigger movie aspect of it, because if it's gonna have a James Gunn stamp, I'm gonna have the same issues I had with Superman. It's gonna have some highlights and moments, but it's gonna feel very James Gunnish. It's gonna be familiar territory. It's not gonna do anything that's gonna be like, oh wow, unless it's like Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the
I was
Galaxy.
gonna say, what was your thought on Volume 3? Because that was his most recent thing. And I remember you. I thought you were pretty high on that.
It was cool. It was cool. But Guardians of the Galaxy as a whole was unfamiliar territory for me. So where Superman is very familiar territory for me. And again, it's kind of hard to like make Superman extremely different but good. It's like you're gonna fall into some holes here and there. It's not gonna be perfect. And so for me, it's not to say that whatever it comes out in the bigger universe is gonna be bad. It's just I may not be as interested in it, but outside.
Well, he's not writing everything.
No, I'm just saying. If James Gunn does another thing, I'm gonna be like, okay, cool. I'm gonna watch it, obviously. But like I said, I'm more focused on the James Gunn work. That's the Creature Commando.
On the things that are kind of different than the run of the mill.
Because I think he can do that better.
Stuff like that. Yeah,
he does that better for me.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
I'm more interested in that, in the ground level stuff
for what he's going to write and or direct. Yes,
and
I think also.
I was gonna say second thing. I am in the bigger scope how they're going to introduce Lobo, and I'm curious of the Batman they're going to introduce. Those are the only two things that I'm
I'd agree.
Yeah, and I would say overall, like the one thing I will say, I like that this era of DC is they're playing to the strengths of one. They have a really big sandbox that's really interesting, and by taking it like, hey, we're gonna do movies, TV, and animation, and but it's all going to fit into that world, and each one's going to have its own little thing. That to me is the most interesting part of this whole situation, because like kind of like what Cam said, like, yo, Lanterns might be super interesting. I really enjoyed Creature Commandos, but there were some quibbles, but I liked it.
I never remember, I never read a single Creature Commando. I didn't know about the Creature Commandos until he announced it, and that's when I went and looked it up. And then I was like, oh, I knew about certain characters like Frankenstein, the Bride, Weasel. I knew about certain members of the team, but I didn't know that that was another of Waller's units that she that she employed, that she put together and would send out. So that made it even more interesting. And then like with the Authority is coming in as well. So yeah.
And the Authority is another one that's interesting. It's going to be very interesting because Warren Ellis, he famously did a bunch of stuff within Marvel and in Image, but he he famously killed Stormwatch essentially. So Stormwatch was almost like this like UN global like superhero team, and then when he came in to write it, he was like, "Yeah, I got to kill these. These are all corny." And he literally took like 15 episodes, 15 issues to kill like most of the team, kept maybe one or two characters, and then split off into the Authority, and then had made it on a grander and larger scale. And then at the time, the Authority basically the way they handled at this as this is a super team of a whole world. They operated globally, and that's where the engineers from. There's a couple Apollos from that, the Midnighter. Yeah, those characters, these really interesting characters that operated on a global scale that previously a lot of team iterations were very localized, right? Oh, this is New York. Oh, we're in America. But then the Authority would operate on things that were either like somewhere in Malaysia, then back to Japan, and now they're in America, but now they're doing something for the whole thing. So the Authority could be a very interesting thing with characters that people don't really know, and I think they'll be really interesting to take that he goes with that. And so
but they are superhero characters, right?
And they are superhero characters, yeah.
Which is why I think we leave with the engineer the way we do, right? They acknowledge that she was still breathing, and we know that Superman tries to save her, and she recognizes that.
Yep.
And so I took that as him. That's another corner that he left for us. For that character may be going on a redemption arc where we meet her again, and she's now a member of the Authority, because they didn't establish that the Authority existed or that she was a member at all.
Exactly.
So that's what I thought.
Right.
Yeah, and that makes it fun because then you have like I said, again, this is the part that I think Gunn's gonna have a lot of fun with is like he has a lot of like toys to play with. And like there's ones that you know and there's some that you don't. And the ones that you don't, they're gonna be super interesting. So like that's why when I saw the Authority on the docket, I was like, this is gonna be kind of like another Guardians of the Galaxy moment where these are characters that your average person has no idea. So now you can start fresh and give them a whole take. And then if you're a comic book nerd and you see it, you're like, oh shit, this is kind of cool. When my first initial thing when I heard that they're gonna make a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, I was like, what the fuck? And why would you do that? And then when it came, now everyone knows who the fuck Rocket Raccoon is and Star-Lord. Like I've been following Guardians of the Galaxy since like 87. So for me, I'm like, this is weird that everyone knows the characters that I know of. But
now
so
it's pop culture.
Yeah, now it's pop culture.
Yeah. Can I ask you guys something? Hellboy is DC, right?
It's independent. It's like Dark Horse.
Yeah, it's Dark Horse.
Yeah. It's independent. Mike Mignola created it. He has his own world. It's a completely separate thing.
Okay, so I did say, well, for me, I am comic book fatigued out at certain points, but I would be very interested to see James Gunn direct the Hellboy.
Oh yeah,
he would do a good job. Good job. Yeah.
But I also would be curious to see him do Constantine, but I wouldn't be opposed to seeing Constantine a little bit more supernatural, more serious tone than a James Gunn tone.
Yeah.
But I'd be curious to see if he did take on a Constantine project, how would that turn out?
Well, the interesting thing is that all of those are from Gaiman's world, right? So that's why I think part of the reason they want Sandman. Sandman's a contained story, so it's not like it was going to be stretched out that much. But I think that they ended it obviously because of the business deals, but Warner Bros. Discovery owns DC, and Sandman is now a DC property, and it would be interesting if that's why. Remember season 1 where they reference Dr. Fate, and there was another character, the one that's Dr. Destiny in DC. Like they all appear in Dream's narrative, that first part, as well as Lucifer. So that brings me to my point: is if you're gonna do it, then it'd be nice to finally bridge those gaps to show Constantine with Gaiman's version of Lucifer, who is. We've seen in 2 iterations, both the one from Fox and Gwendolyn Christie, they are technically the same character, right? So Gwendolyn Christie is right when he's ruling hell, and the other guy, what's his name, Tom Ellis, I don't know. The one he's playing is when he decides to go to LA, and so it would be nice to see all of those under DC, under the DCU kind of existing.
And
You said you said
DC
Sandman is now part of DC. I thought Vertigo was a DC imprint.
Yeah,
that's what I meant. Vertigo is a DC imprint, but DC has the license to use those characters should they want to. But
and also,
it was always there. So Vertigo is their thing. So I thought
right. That's what my bigger point. My bigger point is that I'm hoping that they start to reflect that in live action. They start
dovetailing them in.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The reason I said it that way is because they broke up these things and they separated them so constantly
into different labels, right?
Put them in the Vertigo. And so I think, and also like the DC's, like we talk about this all the time, Marvel does horrible when it comes to like anything magic, where DC on the flip side does amazing when it comes to magic. And it makes it interesting. There's rules, there's this, there's that, there's multi-layers, So that's like a whole nother untapped aspect of it, that when DC goes that realm, they're gonna have a lot of fun. And we know that they have the chops to do it. It's gonna be super interesting. There's so much in that world that they can go high, low, dark, to silly, to gruesome, to kitty, whatever they want to go with that. So
and all of their characters typically dabble in different magic, because Constantine's sorcery is different but related to what's happening with Trigon and Raven and all
and Zatanna,
and Zatara's magic is different than Morgan Le Fay and Clarion. Like there's so many different, or Dr. Fate, and they're specific with it. So they do DC, like Cam said, they do the magic stuff well, and they do the multiverse extremely well.
Yes,
that's their strength. Marvel's strength, and hopefully the MCU starts to reflect this again, has been their story arcs and the epicness of their story arcs and their characters in general.
It'd be nice.
100%. And that's a good place to leave it. Thank you for listening to Rant for over X amount of hours. As always, really appreciate it. Like, subscribes, all the things, shares, and whatnots. And this is Blerdlines, and we out. Peace.
Chelsea winners of the World Cup.
Whatever. I knew you were going to bring that up.